Ralph, Senior Vice President at Staples. Don was a panelist at the annual State of Logistics report released by the Council of Supply Chain Management Professionals. And Don, what do you see happening in collaboration in the supply chain industry these days?
I think that given what's happened with the economy for the last 2 years, that we're going to see some consolidation of suppliers, and as a result, you're going to have more shippers investing more in collaboration with providers such as transportation providers and service providers, where the economics are really going to be broken down between true fixed and variable expenses, and longer-term relationships where negotiations aren't taking place every 6 months, but these variables will act to cement the relationship, take out that transactional nature, and then both sides can spend the bulk of their relationships focusing on strategic issues.
How difficult will that be in the transportation arena?
Yet to be determined, because I don't think there's been a lot of activity in that regard. But I think in a sense, the survivors, those that have come through and have survived the recession and really have the staying power, it's going to make strategic sense in order to do that. And I think the good ones will get it right and the poor ones won't.
Which changes that companies generally have made as a result of the recession are likely to be lasting, and which may not be, and why?
I think companies that took across-the-board expense cuts, sort of a peanut butter approach, they're not sustainable in my mind. A lot of the cost will enter its way back into the system. But those that stepped back and took a more targeted approach, for example, we looked at complexity within our organization and divided into good complexity we want to leverage that competitors can't copy, and bad complexity we want to take out of the system. Folks that had a more targeted approach or scientific approach, I think those costs are more sustainable, and we'll see that in the long run.
Going back to collaboration for a moment, you mentioned on the panel that your company has dealt with suppliers as if they were going to merge and looking for savings like that. Could you explain that a little bit more, please?
Sure. I think one of the reasons that collaboration is important is just the volatility in the world today. Losing a carrier or losing a service provider is disruptive. It takes time and expense in order to make a change. And one of the approaches that we've done, and not in every case, but in some, is where you get in a room with another company, and you essentially sit down and say, look, let's pretend the two organizations have merged, and really plot a value stream map of how the companies intersect and all the different touch points, with a goal to reduce volatility, reduce time, take inventory, take costs out of the intersections, and share those savings equally with both organizations. I think that's a very valuable and viable approach.
Mm-hmm. That's worked well?
So far, yes. And it's kind of in its infancy, but it's worked well so far.
Mm-hmm. What other trends do you see coming out of this recession as the economy improves for supply chains for the entire industry?
Well, let me speak to the retail industry for a minute. I think you're going to see more retailers invest in things like sales and operations planning. That's been more of a consumer products industry phenomenon. It's starting to work its way into retail, and it has a lot of value. I think that many of the major retailers are making investments in assortment management and demand shaping, particularly those with e-commerce platforms. And there's a lot of discussion now about really deep quantitative analytics and how to use that, similar to what the financial services community and the insurance community has done. How we really take that deep science of analytics and use it to drive our businesses more effectively. That's more the discussion phase than it is in the practical application side, but I think that's an area that I'm going to see hear a lot more about.
Does that require substantial investment in new technology?
I don't know yet. It's the simple answer. All right, it's something that we're spending some time doing our due diligence and some getting the thought capital around it and making a decision. Where can we use that type of technology to make our business more effective? So the jury's still out.